will be telling you about the environmental and social impact of Reykjavik geothermal operations in Ethiopia. Now, Reykjavik Geothermal is a development company. The core business is to use geothermal technology to produce electricity in high-temperature regions in emerging markets. RG has offices in 3 countries, head office in Reykjavik, another office in New York, and the third in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Now, although a small company with staff about 25 to 30 people, RG owns a number of assets and have the capacity and experience to cover all steps of the geothermal value chain, from geoscience surveying, modeling, and exploration drilling to building and operating power plants. Since foundation in 2008, RG Business Development has covered 42 countries, and staff have worked on projects in countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Djibouti, Kenya, and Nicaragua. At present, we are focusing on our own projects, a 1,000 megawatt project in Ethiopia in regions of Corbeti, Tulumoyo, and Abaya. We are in Mexico planning to develop 30 megawatts, and in the Caribbean in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, starting exploration drilling for 15 megawatts. Our largest consulting assignment today is a European Union-sponsored exploration project in Burundi, Rwanda, and Congo. Now, RG has implemented the international standards of best practice on quality, environment, and social management, and health and safety, notably the trinity of ISO 9001, 14001, and OSAS 18001. And we also incorporated into procedures social responsibility standards. Now, for a project to be a bankable entity, compliance with best practice standards is a requirement. In our case, this has involved following the World Bank operational policies and the IFC performance standards. We have also had to comply with requirements made by the European Investment Bank, the African Development Bank, and others. Now, RG projects have fallen into Category A, as defined by the World Bank and IFC. Category A means that the project is likely to have significant adverse environmental impacts that are sensitive and diverse. These projects may affect broader area than the sites or facilities subject to physical works. For a Category A project, the sponsor is responsible for full environmental social impact assessment, or ESIA. The reason is simply because a lot of things are affected in geothermal development unless control measures are implemented. The drinking water resource can be affected, the air may smell, the noise from drilling affects much larger area than the drill pad itself. Furthermore, we have had to consider effects that are indirect or can accumulate. And as a standard procedure, we start ESIA study as early as possible. There are project benefits, of course, that may include capacity building in terms of development of human and institutional resources, involving creation of jobs and training programs. There will be clean and cheap renewable energy and so forth and so on. Once concessional permissions have been obtained and initial results from our geoscience team are in place, RG ESI process starts with a scoping report and a baseline field study into environmental and social variables. This data is used to compile and write ESIA report with impacts and mitigation measures identified in Environmental and Social Management Plan, or ESMP. Information collected through local laws and regulations and the socio-economic survey is used to prepare stakeholder engagement plan, where the project-affected people, or PAP, are identified. At start, we also need to consider a plan for resettlement, or at least a plan for livelihood restoration. The IFC performance standards are the crème de la crème of international requirements. They trigger a number of issues to be considered. For instance, PS1. PS1 requires us to do ESI study, a process that immediately at the scoping or baseline stage involves thorough introduction of the project to stakeholders, including disclosure of information to the community and the PAP, elders, females, vulnerable groups, and so forth. PS1 states that once you have identified the impacts and mitigation measures, you do another round of disclosure to discuss this information with the affected people for feedback and incorporate and amend impacts and mitigation measures accordingly. The third round of disclosure is when you have a final draft of the ESI report. PS1 recommends that you prepare stakeholder engagement plan, or SEP, to be reviewed, published, and approved with the ESI report. Draft of this document has to be disclosed to stakeholders for consultation and discussion prior to publication. The SEP has to include grievance redress mechanism. That is a process of how to handle, investigate, and resolve concerns, complaints, and problems. Oops, Daisy. PS5, I want to tell you a little bit of PS5. If there is any physical or economic displacement when PS5 is triggered, if there's a physical displacement, PS5 is triggered. The areas where RG works are densely populated. If drilling targets are not known, we create the resettlement policy framework, spelling out the process of resettlement issues, and if and when the targets have been located, resettlement action plan is made and disclosed to stakeholders for review and comments. If there are no resettlement issues or physical displacement, only economic displacement, livelihood restoration plan is prepared, or land acquisition plan. And I couldn't resist, this is a photograph by my favorite Ethiopian artist, Aida Mulune. A resettlement action plan, RAP, has to be thorough and cover all relevant issues such as methods to minimize resettlement and census and socio-economic data on PAP. The affected people have to participate in the selection of resettlement sites. The RAP has to include income restoration strategies and monitoring and evaluation program, including an independent completion audit report. The general rule of IFC is that people displaced should be better off following displacement. At minimum, they should have same standards of living. And here we have a picture of Miriam of Magdala, one of the Black Madonnas in Ethiopia. Following best practice will involve a number of other plans to be considered at some stage. Excuse me. There will probably be need for environmental and social action plan, environmental and social management system, community development plan, HIV engagement plan, wild protection plan, and health and safety program, to name a few. And the list goes on. And this is a picture taken of a lone ranger while we were working in the fields of Corbeti. Ethiopian environmental and social legal environment is rather advanced. It includes essential laws and regulations required for environmental and social protection and by and large fair treatment. Furthermore, the country has ratified a number of international treaties on the protection of the environment and sustainability. papers all over the place. Ethiopian laws promote the principle of full replacement cost for loss of livelihood and assets. In addition, the law promotes in-kind compensation, which is strongly recommended by the IFC. The law also promotes some livelihood restoration strategies, including compensation and entitlements. However, additional assistance may have to be provided to vulnerable groups as part of the livelihood restoration strategies. Comparison of Ethiopian laws and IFC policies shows some issues that can be done better, and this applies to other countries where we have been working. Additionally, for us, as project proponents, we need to consider adequate stakeholder engagement, monitoring and evaluation program, grievance redress mechanism, and a reporting system. So how is RG doing? We are now on IFC schedule in Korbeti, Tulumoye, and St. Vincent. Compensations have been paid to up to 100 farmers for loss of farm and grazing land in Korbeti for new roads leading to the first 2 drill sites. We are also on operational time schedule in Tulumoye. We have completed surface exploration and located drilling targets. We are behind operational schedule in Korbeti, but not due to environmental and social issues. The St. Vincent project was delayed a little bit because of sightings of endangered species in our target area that triggered PES 6. In our early days in Korbeti, things moved slowly for a long time due to lack of funding. Yet we managed to complete ESIA report with public consultation, and suddenly things moved very fast. Investors got on board, and the European Investment Bank, EIB, started looking at the social issues. EIB criticized us for not having completed SCP or the RPF, and for not having updated the ESI report according to latest target locations. For a successful implementation of the best practice standards means hiring and paying more staff. We have needed a social manager, local community liaison officers, and an administration function for reporting, also an environmental health and safety officer. In terms of total project cost, this is not much. 1 megawatt in Ethiopia is estimated at $4.5 million. Drilling cost per day with crew is about $30,000 and $60,000 with materials. Delay or standby cost per day for a drill is about $20,000 to $30,000 if the delay is due to the project owner. There are a number of examples where projects have been halted or a mediator had to be brought in to resolve issues between a company and communities. 3 years ago, the international financial institutions had records of 262 cases of complaints and conflicts in 72 countries, where 185 were requests for problem solving. In 2012, there were 22 complaints related to the energy sector alone in Africa. Saving money on environmental and social issues is not a clever strategy. Failure to budget these issues in time and follow through has resulted in project delay, lack of funding, conflicts with local communities, bad reputation, and a number of other rather depressing stuff. Unfortunately, this has not happened to RG, but to other countries, other companies. And that's it. Thank you very much.